A very good morning to you. It's Tuesday morning here in Manchester, and a lovely day it is too, although a few menacing clouds coming in, so we could have some of our characteristic rain. Been away for a few days. I did kind of explain why in a video I made a couple of days ago. Been putting my mind to a few things, so hopefully the stuff I'm going to turn out over the next couple of days will be of interest and hopefully up to a standard. What I want to talk about today is gaps in knowledge of presenters of YouTube channels about watches, the people we view as watch fans, watch obsessives, watch nuts, watch aficionados, excuse me, to get help and information. Now there's two channels that I've seen over the last couple of days that seem to have yawning gaps in their knowledge about what isn't a prestigious brand, but a brand that does have prestigious history. Now the two channels, and I have made some notes, so bear with me here, I didn't want to forget anything. The two channels are a blog to watch, obviously we're all aware of that, and watchreport.com. What brought this to mind was two separate reviews they did on two separate watches. A blog to watch did a review on the Thomas Earnshaw Beagle, and the watchreport.com did a video on the Thomas Earnshaw Admiral. Now, what brought this to mind was Ariel Adams, who is one of the standard presenters, who just never see the guy. I don't think he just does a voiceover. Once he said the name of the watch, he said, "Oh yes, and this watch is called a Beagle." Obviously, he's an American, so an American accent doesn't come natural to me. And he said, "I have no idea why." Obviously named after a dog, and moved along quite swiftly. A gentleman called Michael Wolf on the watchreport.com did a review of the Thomas Earnshaw Admiral, and the first words out of his mouth after introducing the watch was that it is a brand or a brand name that he'd never heard of. Now, I think if we as watch collectors want to get valid information, sometimes it's quite nice to have a little background of where these brands are coming from, where they've been, and what they are now. The prime example of that, of course, is Tag Heuer. The old Heuer brand was actually very well thought of, a very prestigious brand, and if you can get hold of a vintage Heuer these days, you've probably got quite a nice timepiece on your hand, literally and metaphorically speaking. But now, of course, they've relaunched as Tag Heuer, and they, apart from a couple of models, they seem to be looked down on as being of their day, as it were. You can't wear a tag of the 1980s on your wrist today and feel settled with it, let's say. So that's the kind of idea that I'm talking about, where you should know where they've come from. So what I want to do, I have no ambition that the watchreport.com or a blog to watch will be watching this nonsense, but to give you a little bit of an idea of the yawning gap in knowledge, I knew a little bit about this guy solely on the basis that he comes from not far from where I actually live now, and not far from where I was born and brought up. So I've made a few notes. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. I didn't want to miss anything out. So Thomas Earnshaw. Thomas Earnshaw was born in a place called Ashton-under-Lyne. Now, if you've watched a number of my videos, you will be aware that that is my local market town. It is literally a mile as the crow flies from where I live. He was born in 1749. And he was born as, say, in Ashton-under-Lyne. I think we will probably find a blue plaque in Ashton-under-Lyne to him. Now, for anybody who's watching this, maybe across the pond or in Europe, we in Britain have blue plaques, circular blue plaques, which we put on buildings where notable people are born, lived or died, which commemorates their life and indeed existence, anything they did of any importance. So in Ashton-under-Lyne somewhere, somebody will be living in a house with a blue plaque on it, and the chances are they will have no idea who Thomas Earnshaw was. He died in 1829 in London at the age of 80. Now, that's a hell of a good age for that period in time, and we can only assume that the guy looked after himself, or he had very, very good genetics. So let's try and put this in some form of focus, the contribution that Thomas Earnshaw made to get us where we are, as collecting these lovely, lovely little things that we wear on our wrist at the moment. Got the Omega 300 Professional on today. Feels great. Still does. Love it to bits. What Thomas Earnshaw did, basically, he was fascinated by the work of a predecessor called John Arnold. John Arnold tried very, very hard to develop a reliable watch clock movement that would be accurate and dependable and wouldn't need servicing every 6 weeks like a lot of them did back in the day. So what Thomas Earnshaw did, as many watch manufacturers do and will continue to do, will take an existing movement, look at it, decide what he can do with it to make it better, and develop it accordingly under his name. What he actually did, he found a way of actually simplifying the movement. The beauty of simplifying the movement was, obviously, it was easier to service because, excuse me, watchmakers and service people in those days were very, very expensive, of course. So what he did, he simplified it, which made the manufacturing process simpler, which then took the cost of manufacture down. And then, of course, because it became cheaper to make them, you could sell them cheaper. And obviously, at that point, the general public had more access to a timepiece. Of course, up until that point in time, the timepieces were either made for the landed gentry or royalty, usually to a bespoke order made from beautiful metals, usually gold, lots of engraving and guilloche work, a lot of enamelling, a lot of them with chimes and so on and so forth. We've seen all these things go to auction for hundreds of thousands of pounds. So that is where Thomas Earnshaw kind of got his reputation from. He was a kind of man of the people who came from a very, very poor area. It is still a very poor area, and decided that he could make something that Joe Bloggs on the street could afford to buy. His greatest achievement, however, which seems to escape both watchreport.com and the blog to watch, was that Thomas Earnshaw developed the workings for the very first reliable marine chronometer. And that marine chronometer was taken by competition with two other manufacturers, I believe. I don't know who they were. Selected as the one that they thought would work well, and it was actually bought and commissioned and made, and was put on board HMS Beagle. So, Mr. Adams, that's the reason why the watch is called the Beagle. And yes, a beagle is a dog, but in this case, it's a ship. And as we know, HMS Beagle, Darwin, the theory of evolution. So, without the accurate marine chronometer, navigation would have been very, very difficult, if not nigh on impossible. I appreciate in the old days the tribes and things used to navigate via stars, but it was far easier if you knew how to calculate distance over time and that kind of thing. Another one that is quite interesting with Thomas Earnshaw is that one of his infamous customers, notice I say infamous rather than famous, was Captain Bligh. Yes, Captain Bligh, the man off the Mutiny of the Bounty. Mr. Christian, that fella. Excuse me, not too well today. Sorry, just bear with me a moment. Captain Bligh went to see Thomas Earnshaw, and in 1503 he negotiated with Thomas Earnshaw for him to build a secondary accurate marine chronometer that he could take with him on the Bounty, because he was going down south of the equator, so he needed to know the correct time to measure time over distance on the charts. That also, Bligh was very, very famous as being one of the greatest navigators the Royal Navy had ever had, although obviously we only know him because he was this cruel, tyrannical man that his crew mutinied on. So I say he bought this in 1503, and he bought it for us the princely sum, and it was a princely sum then, of 50 guineas. Now 50 guineas, for anybody who is too young to know, or isn't British, English really, was £1, 1 shilling. Now there was 20 shillings to a pound, so a guinea was 21 shillings. And a guinea is the only currency that gentlemen ever traded in. So if you bought or sold something to a certain level of time within about sort of the 18th century, and actually the very early to mid 20th century, because I remember my dad buying something in guineas when I was little, and I still love the term guinea. It should still exist. It is the currency that gentlemen trade in and still should be. So it's £1 and 1 shilling. So he bought it for 50 guineas. 50 guineas. Now, to have that kind of income in those days, that expendable income, must be absolutely incredible. So there you go, watchreport.com and a blog to watch, a little bit of education for you. It's all basically around a very, very famous movement designer, Thomas Earnshaw, who lived locally to where I live, who developed the first reliable competition-winning marine chronometer. So that's it for this one. I hope I'm kind of back on track. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or any comments on this particular video, as always, down below. Better still, if you've got any history that you know of about Thomas Earnshaw that I've missed, and I'm sure there are bits and pieces about his life, make me a video and tell me. Tell everyone. Tell watchreport.com and a blog to watch. They'll be interested, I'm sure. Anyway, that's it for this one. I've got a few ideas now, so hopefully my video maker's block has disappeared, and I shall speak to you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.